areas we got to improve. Our kickoff coverage wasn't good enough. If you look at our stats, you're going to say, oh, well, the stats aren't bad, but they had a big return get called back, and it should have got called back. It was clear holding on the play, but our kickoff coverage got to be better. The McCray kid that Texas Tech has is really fast. That's why we tried so hard to get him. But he's really fast, but we've got to do a better job on those field returns. And then the penalty on punt return, where we had to start inside the 10.
Test 1 for Mike 1. Test 2 for Mike 2. Test 3 for Mike 3.
I love Coach Brawl's offense. I think he uses the slots very well and just mixing this.
I'm not really worried about how fast Major running because I know how fast I am, so it's good.
And coming into this game, you guys were pretty evenly matched across.
And Bailey in the backfield. Morris to the end zone.
Playing really good, as you said. They're 3-1. Lost a hard-fought game to Penn State early, and since then have been on a run. They won the backyard brawl against Pittsburgh and really dominated.
Welcome into the Frogs Today pregame show ahead of TCU and West Virginia. We've got a night game and a blackout, so it's bound to get a little rowdy here in the Carter. Maggie, Hale, and Courtney Stockhaus here are your hosts, and we've got a lot to go over. TCU last week took another home win over SMU in the Iron Skillet rivalry, 34-17. We're going to recap that and how they're now 3-1 and fourth in the Big 12. Then we've got Jeremiah Donati coming in for that special interview here every week, kind of become our pregame ritual. And then we've got a West Virginia scouting report for you, offensive and defensive keys for both teams, and we're going to wrap it up with our stars of the game. So with that, let's go ahead and get into those TCU and SMU highlights.
Richardson and Bailey in the backfield. Morris to the end zone. Touchdown! TCU on the board. It's the big man, Jared Wiley. Second down and goal.
Second and goal from the 2.
Sanders. This is the tight end, Wiley. Touchdown, TCU. Second touchdown to the tight end, Wiley.
You kind of stop themselves with penalties or what have you in the red zone.
Bailey. He's got the first down. He's got the touchdown. Mustangs dreaming right here. They need something. Stone picked off. Josh Newton's got the football. Newton's still on his feet. Newton, can he? Will he? Out of bounds at the 10. Blitz comes off the edge. It's picked up. Stone to the end zone. And that one's picked off. But Clark for the interception. On it too, they're going to go for it. And they got it. This is going to ice it. Curtis, touchdown, TCU. Chase Curtis said, we need a quarterback in here because I want to go the distance.
Absolutely.
This is my...
Very important for TCU to get that rivalry win over SMU, 34-17. That final score, halftime, 14-10, and TCU held them scoreless in the third quarter. So it really was a good effort, both sides of the ball for TCU. And through week 2, TCU is ranked 3rd nationally for fastest tempo, running almost 3 plays a minute. They're coming in at 2.83, a ton of fast-paced ball that these guys are playing, and kind of definitely wears down that defense. If it also wears out the offense, but if they can't switch out, neither can that defense. And you know, TCU's got a couple of tricks up their sleeve. Definitely going to be paying fast-paced today, which is something I'm not sure the Mountaineers can hang with. But going back to the SMU and TCU game, we've got a lot to recap. Chandler Morris, his completion percentage has been pretty good, yeah?
Right now, Chandler Morris is on track to beat TCU history for the best completion rate for a season. Right now, he has a 69% completion rate, and the best record for TCU is 67.3 by Kenny Hale back in 2017. TCU is also first in Big 12 for total offensive yards and 12th nationally.
Definitely having a great season so far, despite what everyone may think. Got to look at the stats. And for last week, Chandler had a great game as well. No interceptions and no fumbles. That's a big one. We talked about that week 1. Sonny was wanting to cut out, especially those fumbles on the goal line. And last week, having no fumbles against SMU and interceptions, that's good looks for TCU. He had 3 passing touchdowns, 8 yards average per attempt on those passes, but TCU did go 6 for 48 on penalties. Sonny's still not satisfied with those penalties. However, it is a huge improvement from the first 3 games of the season. Cleanest offensive game by far. But we did talk about being unable to convert after a penalty, and 33% of the time, the offense is not able to find the end zone, whether that be a field goal or a touchdown after a penalty. And 33% of the time, they just settled for a field goal instead of a touchdown. So they definitely need to make sure they lock down on, especially just not getting rattled after those penalties. And quarterback pressure, of course. 2 sacks, 2 hurries, 77 total plays of offense. So he was pressured 5% of the time in the pocket last game, and he had incomplete passes 100% of the time when he was pressured. So while they do keep him out of that quarterback pressure pretty well, that line is pretty good at defending him, he's unable to make those plays when he is under pressure. So that's definitely something that he wants to improve on as well. Kind of just settling down and settling in and not letting any guys rush him.
And I think we are going to continue to see that from Chandler. Last week, we were also missing Dylan Wright and Jack Besh, but we had some tight ends definitely step up last game.
Absolutely.
Jared Wiley and Chase Curtis. Chase Curtis with his first career touchdown last game.
He's got a great story.
Oh, absolutely. His longest receiving carry was 36 yards, and he also had two receptions.
Yeah.
Thank you, for 55 yards. And Jared Wiley also had 5 receptions for 37 yards, 2 touchdowns, that longest reception being 17 yards. We've talked a lot about there being 11 different receivers involved offensively, and we're really hoping that TCU will be able to lock down their receivers, but I think Jared Wiley has definitely stepped up and hopefully can be that guy for Chandler.
Yeah, he's definitely making a play to be that one target for Chandler Morris. You know, we saw him be that guy for Max Duggan last year along with Quentin Johnston, so hopefully we can see him do that again, and I think next week if he's able to do that, we'll have a lot to say about Jared Wiley being Mr. Reliable. Moving on to the rushing. Amani Bailey right now is the leading rusher in the Big 12. Second in the nation for missed tackles, 31. So he's making those guys miss him 31 times. And behind Audric Estime from Notre Dame at 32. So really, he's right up there with 1 and 2, which is really impressive, especially for a guy who has been behind Kendre Miller for the majority of his career. Now, that does mean that he was able to learn a lot from that third-round draft pick. But, you know, it also means he wasn't getting a ton of in-game experience. To see him pop out like this so early in the season is really incredible for a sophomore.
Yes, Amani Bailey showing up last game with 25 attempts for 137 yards, 1 touchdown, and that longest attempt for 24 yards with an average of 5 yards per carry. Chandler Morris also had some rushing action last week.
Absolutely.
6 carries for 43 yards, that longest one being at 21 yards with an average of 6.3 yards per carry.
I think it's super impressive that we're kind of seeing Chandler come into that second role. Sonny talked a ton about knowing when for Chandler to run the ball and knowing when he needs to pass it off. Obviously, also knowing when he needs to throw. But I think it's really awesome to see that he's not hogging the ball. He doesn't need these rushing yards. He uses it when he has to, but it's not normally the play call. And I think that was something Sonny said to begin with, that's never going to be the play call, but if it happens, he knows Chandler can do it, which is why they have him there in that QB1 position. Defense,
Nambi Obiezer had a career high last game with 11 tackles.
What a guy.
Which was a team best versus SMU, but the most was Johnny Hodges last season against Texas.
Yeah, tied that record.
Also, Johnny Hodges was out last game, but we definitely had some people step up, one of those being Shad Banks.
Absolutely. Shadrach Banks definitely stepped up into that role, but we talked with the defensive guys after the game. They said that while just Shadrach Banks was able to really step up, they definitely still missed Johnny Hodges, which is hoping to see him back this week. Not sure yet. You know, a lot of the guys with injuries are up in the air right now. We've got a lot more on injuries later. But TCU opponents right now are 3-11 on the season for 4th down conversion. That's an incredible stat defensively. Absolutely something you want to see. A 27.3% conversion rate, 2nd in the Big 12. 13th nationally. So TCU really making some national headlines here, definitely in the Big 12, but absolutely nationally. TCU has not allowed a rush past 20 yards, which is really impressive because we've seen our guys break out and have these rushes. You know, we saw Major Everhart, 86-yard kickoff return. TCU hasn't allowed any of that. So it's really awesome to see that defense really lock it down. And they held SMU to no passing touchdowns and also 2 interceptions. So it's really impressive to see something that SMU originally was very good at. Seeing them not be able to get any and limiting them to only that one offensive style was huge in that win. And 4 quarterback hurries, 3 sacks, 74 plays of total offense. So quarterback pressure applied 9% of the time. One of the lower ends, actually, for TCU. They've had games with much more. Houston, namely, 14% of the time quarterback pressure. But 3 of those 4 hurries were by Jamoy Hodge. That guy's a big player on the defense. Definitely something to look out for today. And Nambi Obiezor, Dominic Williams, and Channing Canada accounted for those 3 sacks. And we've got a lot more to talk about here, but first, let's go ahead and get into what Sonny had to say this Tuesday.
Has them playing really good. As you said, they're 3-1. Lost a hard-fought game to Penn State early, and since then have been on a run. They won the backyard brawl against Pittsburgh and really dominated those guys, and really played well last week against Texas Tech as well. So it's a team that's got a lot of momentum. They're playing with a lot of confidence. It's a typical West Virginia team, very, very physical, tough-minded team. Really want to run the football. They've got a big, powerful running back and do a good job of pounding him, and that's kind of what they want to do. They want to play a physical brand of football, and so we're going to have to do a great job preparing for it this week and come out and not only match their physicality but surpass it.
I got to believe our defense and the way they're playing is a good matchup because I think Nico Marchiol is his name, is his second start ever in college. His dad played in the NFL, I think linebacker for a couple teams, but is a second-time starter in a college game. This is a defense's dream, I would want to believe, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think anytime you play against kind of a young quarterback, you want to make sure you do a good job of confusing him and pressuring him and not letting him get too comfortable and settled in. And so, I think it's probably the same kind of philosophy when people play us. Chandler doesn't have that many starts, and anytime you can take a young quarterback and confuse them and unsettle them a little bit, it's usually a good thing. And so, we'll be trying to do the same thing to them that they're going to try to do to us, and that's, again, make the quarterback uncomfortable. But again, they've got a really strong, powerful run game. The quarterback can hand it off, and they can churn out first downs and keep the ball away from you. And my guess is that's what they'll try to do on Saturday.
A lot of memorable quotes definitely from that post game. Probably some of the best quotes of the season. My favorite might be Sonny Dykes. I think the AAC refs just wanted to go home. Absolutely. I think that's what everyone was feeling after that late safety call.
I think so. I think personally that was definitely a safety. We saw the celebration.
Yeah,
I don't
that
know if
was
you
an
guys
insane
saw, but that was an
celebration.
insane celebration. So Sonny definitely was not happy about that one, but it was great to see a little humor out of it in the end, I would say. But
we can all agree that was a safety. And Josh Newton put him a little bit on the hot spot, asked him about the criticism, and his response was plain and simple, they couldn't do it. It was my favorite thing to answer. Didn't know what to say after that. Got a little quiet. He is right. Absolutely.
I mean, straight to the point. You can't really say anything else about that. They just couldn't do it.
Absolutely. And we talked a lot to him about also kind of the preparation, and he gave us a very straightforward answer. They do the same thing every week. They're going to come in and day out, practice, game. He laid it out for me, basically laid out the entire season of preparation for me. Funny guy.
Same thing. Blunt and straight to the point, which is what we love about him, and definitely some great quotes from him last week.
Absolutely. And Jared Wiley got to talk to him about that kind of step up for him and what that's been like, kind of going from being that guy with Max Duggan to now stepping into this role with Chandler Morris. And he had a lot to say about that relationship just kind of evolving, and I think we're going to see it evolve even more today.
Absolutely. We just talked about his stats, 2 touchdowns last game, which is absolutely great for him.
Yeah.
So I think that relationship is only going to continue
and
develop.
Absolutely. We've got a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we've got ADJD here with us on set.
In Botham, we put people first. So we simply start by listening to you. Whether you're searching for customized insurance, HR, or financial solutions to protect your home, car, health, business, or employees, our specialists are here to serve you, the people you care about, and your success. Higginbotham, insurance, HR, and financial services. Inspired by you.
We're lucky to have a collective that's as strong and as powerful as the Flying T Club. It's a big deal for us. It is a game changer. I would just encourage any fans out there to support it. Everyone asks me, what's the biggest priority? And I say, NIL is big. Please jump on board, show these student athletes how much they mean to you. The thing about NIL is I think there's a right and a wrong way to do it, and the Flying T Clubs do it the right way. Let's keep winning. Join the Flying T Club today.
So as always, our favorite guest on set, kind of become our pregame ritual. Kind of want to throw a little something at you. You did. It was SMU. It was a big rivalry game. SMU Barstool might have tweeted like, bad day for SMU. And you said, have a good day. Have a good rest of your day.
You caught that, didn't you?
I did catch that. That might be my favorite tweet of the year.
I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck. But
No.
They were really down. And, the whole thing about social media is you got to
humor.
Keep it
have
light.
fun with it.
I mean, look, we're fortunate we're talking about sports, and I was just trying to have a little fun with them. They had been kind of in my DMs and saying some things suggesting they were going to win the game. They didn't. So I just thought, rather than do all that stuff, just wish them well the rest of their day.
Just wish them a great day.
Kill them with kindness.
Just trying to have a little fun. Kill them with kindness. Yeah. As the chancellor do.
Absolutely. I'm sure they appreciated
Maggie,
that.
I'm impressed you caught that.
I saw it immediately.
Everybody saw it.
We all loved it.
We had some fun. We try to, life's too short to take it too seriously. You got to enjoy those moments, and we were just having a little fun with our friends across town.
Absolutely. Great way to put it. So TCU, it's a blackout game tonight. TCU is handing out Protect the Carter shirts for this tough West Virginia game tonight. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Well, night games, and you both know this, night games here just have a little magic to them, and we've been waiting for that big conference night game. We're getting it tonight. A little warm out there, but you can see the sun going down, and it starts with the students.
Yeah.
And so we thought, let's give them a little extra incentive to be here. Hopefully we'll have a record-breaking crowd there in the student section, but they'll be packed. They're really excited about it. So much so, the team wanted the shirts, the band wanted the shirts. So I just hope we've got enough of those shirts. But we should have a great student section, and like I said, it really starts with them.
Yeah. And I don't know if you caught it, but their head coach, Neil Brown, actually said that TCU and the bench being right behind the student section is very hard for them to play. Talk to me about how important that is that students actually come and support and just be loud, because it obviously affects the team.
It's a big advantage for us to have the students right there. I'll walk the sidelines before the game and try to get them going and say, hey, we need you, give them hell. And it's really unusual. Oklahoma State's the only school in the conference, I think, that's got a tighter sideline than we do. And so it's use it to be an advantage. But I would say this back to your point, Maggie, it's really become part of the culture. Is coming to the games, attending the games, being loud, being proud. We see it in football, we see it in baseball, we see it in basketball, we see it in soccer, all the ticketed sports. So it really starts with the students. It's a big part of the student experience, and we need them tonight.
Going back to those students, TCU is first nationally for Power 5 attendance at a 108.5% capacity.
Yeah, I saw that. Not surprised. We've had some big home games, and that's including a Nichols game. That obviously had a good crowd, but not wasn't jam packed by any stretch, just because of the level at which they're playing at. But we'll have a great crowd tonight. I'm not surprised. People, we kind of got it rolling, and I think the team's coming together. People want to see that. They want to see these new faces and how they fit into the new offensive scheme, and so. Here we go. This will be a tough matchup, though. The winner gets to say 2-0 and tied for first place. So that's a big deal in this conference.
And traditionally, this has been a really tough game for TCU. Before last season, a 4-game losing streak for us, including home and aways. What does it kind of mean? Like, what are you kind of predicting for tonight? What should we expect, in your opinion?
Well, we're a little healthier. We're going to get some guys back. I think our guys are going to play really fast. It's coming together, and I expect a big performance. I really think this could be the game where we see the offense click at a whole different level. We saw it for about 2 quarters against SMU, and then we kind of slowed down there in the fourth, and had some things I think we probably wish we would have done differently. But I think our defense is going to be up for the challenge. They know they've got a good running game and a running quarterback that sounds like the starter that is going to play. But our guys are ready for the challenge. I'm not. We're not going to be sleeping on these guys. They'll be ready.
No. Yeah. Might be a night game, but it's not nighttime here in the Carter. As always, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
When we come back,
for
we've got another special guest. Stay with us.
John's Grill is the newest venture from John Bennell and the Bennell's Restaurant Group. A reach-to-table concept featuring food, beer, and spirits from around the great state.
We wouldn't be able to do the things we were able to do this year without the Flying T Club. So we got to continue to get people involved. It's more important right now than it's ever been.
Flying T is special. It's the best thing I've encountered in college. It allows us to be able to offset a lot of the costs that our scholarships aren't able to cover. If people like winning, invest in in the Flying T Club and NIL.
It's almost a necessity now in the college football world. I mean, you got to kind of invest in the programs, and what you put in is what you get out.
John's Grill is the newest venture from John Pennell and the Pennell's Restaurant Group. A ranch-to-table concept featuring food, beer, and spirits from around the great state of Texas. Our menu is designed by Chef Sean Alvarez and features 2 chef-inspired burgers, the Fatty and the Flatty, plus a brisket menu perfect for your casual night out. Fast casual service in a fun, relaxed, family-friendly environment, featuring 11 big screen TVs for you to catch the big game on. Our mixology team has created a craft cocktail and beer menu featuring local spirits and brews from across Texas. John's Grill, home of the Players Club show each week, 2905 West Berry Street in Fort Worth, or online at johnsgrill.com.
In Botham, we put people first. So we simply start by listening to you. Whether you're searching for customized insurance, HR, or financial solutions to protect your home, car, health, business, or employees, our specialists are here to serve you, the people you care about, and your success. Higginbotham, insurance, HR, and financial services. Inspired by you.
Welcome back in from that commercial break. And as we promised, we've got another special guest. So Bill here has been to 130 out of 135 FBS stadiums. This year, 130th today.
Yes, ma'am.
How are we doing this? First of all, when did this start?
Well, it started about 15 years ago. I live north of Stillwater.
Okay.
I'm an Oklahoma State fan, and I followed them around one year, took some visits like to Texas Tech and Iowa State. People treated me really well, so I thought, I'm going to keep going. And here I am 15 years later.
Here you are. So on your list, I know you're obviously going to be biased to Oklahoma State. How excited were you to come to TCU today?
Oh, greatly. I met Larry Broadman last year at the Colorado game, and we've been corresponding for the last year, emails, handwritten, telephone calls, and he's a good booster. He's psyched up, and so I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And what 5 stadiums do you have left after this?
Georgia Tech, Liberty, which I'll get next Thursday night.
Okay.
Kennesaw State, because they're coming in next year in Georgia. Baylor and Sam Houston State.
So are we going to finish it this year?
No.
No. Okay.
Next year.
Next year we'll have it done. Maybe you can come back and you can tell us about all your progress next year.
Well, I'm sure this is going to be number 1.
Oh, yes. So out of all the stadiums you've been to, which one has been the prettiest stadium?
Or maybe a top 3 of your favorite stadiums.
I'm not sure I can tell you which is the prettiest. The one that was the most interesting to me was Idaho, believe it or not.
Idaho.
If you can envision digging a hole in the ground, piling dirt all the way around, and then putting a giant World War II Quonset hut on top. And it's called the Kibbe Dome because a fellow named Kibbe and his wife donated the money. It seats 15,000, 7,500 on each side.
Wow.
And it's up in Moscow, Idaho, in the middle of nowhere. Pretty interesting.
Got a great story behind it.
And the people were really friendly up there. Of course, people are friendly everywhere.
Yes.
Especially here.
So do we come for just the game, or are we staying a little bit after to explore the city?
Whatever Larry wants. I'm with him. I have found as I've done this that the game is less and less important to me.
Yeah.
The fun is meeting people, hearing about the school and the team and stuff like that. I really enjoy that.
Absolutely.
People are just wonderful. Sometimes it causes me problems, like when I was at West Virginia. They were really, really nice to me. It's hard to root against them. But I'm a frog today. And so I'm rooting for the frogs.
Be. Well, it's going to be an exciting game tonight.
I hope so.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for stopping by.
I hope everybody at TCU treats you right tonight.
Oh, it'll be wonderful.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Absolutely. When we come back, we've got some West Virginia quotes for you. Stick around.
We're lucky to have a collective that's as strong and as powerful as the Flying T Club. It's a big deal for us. It is a game changer. I would just encourage any fans out there to support it. Everyone asks me, what's the biggest priority? And I say, NIL is big. Please jump on board, show these student athletes how much they mean to you. The thing about NIL is I think there's a right and a wrong way to do it, and the Flying T Club's do it the right way. Let's keep winning. Join the Flying T Club today.
Simply the best barbecue in Fort Worth. Dine in, catering, or drive-thru. 2900 Montgomery, just off I-30. Remember, the best barbecue in Fort Worth is at Railhead Smokehouse.
Thanks. Areas we got to improve. Our kickoff coverage wasn't good enough. If you look at our stats, you're going to say, oh, well, the stats aren't bad, but they had a big return get called back, and it should have got called back. It was clear holding on the play, but our kickoff coverage got to be better. The McCray kid that Texas Tech has is really fast. That's why we tried so hard to get him. But he's really fast, but we've got to do a better job on those field returns. And then the penalty on punt return, where we had to start inside the 10 on a drive there late in the second half. We got to be smarter than that. I thought we got tired at the end. If you look at the last drives, I think it was 12, 13, and 15 plays. We didn't play as well late. We missed some tackles that we didn't miss earlier in the game. Some of that's the Brooks kid is good, and we got a little high. And so I think we can play the run better. I think that's we played a light box, so some of it was what we were doing schematically, but I think we can, as the year progresses, we need to play the run better. As far as improving, we didn't play well enough at running back or receiver. Like, we got to play way better. At either one of those positions. We got to do more. We got to make more plays to help the quarterbacks. And our pass game, just all around, has got to be better. It wasn't a game. I mean, we call it a decent number of pass plays, really. But we just didn't do a very good job executing. We can throw it better at quarterback. We need to protect him a little better. But we just didn't make a whole lot of plays in space, and we got to do better than that.
Well, first obvious question is injuries, Garrett, and then there are others, obviously.
Yeah, so we're going to see Garrett he was available on Saturday, but he did not warm up very well, and he would have emergency been ready, but we'd have had to help him out. And so I really don't want to play him until he's fully healthy. And he didn't make a whole lot of progress from Wednesday to Saturday. He worked with our trainers today. We'll see what he has Tuesday and Wednesday. And so I really don't have any more than that. If he can practice full go on Tuesday and Wednesday, then he'll play. If he can't, then probably be the same, because then that would give him 2 weeks from Thursday to really get.
Now, Neil Brown had a ton to say about TCU, all good things. And I think it is so important that coaches take the time to really respect the other opponent. Sonny Dykes, we always see him do it. And I think it's so awesome to see Neil Brown do that this week ahead of their game against TCU. And I thought it was also so nice. We saw Sonny talk about how much he loves Neil Brown as a coach, and Neil talk about how much he loves Sonny coaching him. He spent, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes just alone talking about his relationship with Sonny Dykes to end that press conference. So I think it was really special to see that, and I think it's also going to be special for both of them to play each other on the field.
I think it is. It's going to be a great night. West Virginia, obviously, it's going to be a lot harder to win for an away game, and TCU, like we talked about, has a very high attendance record, so that is not going to be easy for them for this away game tonight.
Absolutely. They're very motivated to win on the road is what he said. This team has, like most teams, the goal to get to that Big 12 championship in Cowboys Stadium in Dallas in November. And boy, he was going off about this. He knew how important it is to win these games on the road. We saw TCU come in on the road last year. They made some mistakes. I think TCU ended up winning by just a field goal. So really, they're looking for another good game, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but this has traditionally been a very hard game for TCU. Hopefully TCU is up to standard with what we can see from West Virginia, and he talked a ton about this fourth down mentality in the red zone. Now, basically what he means from that is when he's in the red zone, they're not thinking we have 3 downs and then a field goal attempt. They're taking all 4 attempts to get those touchdowns. And that's that physicality that I think we see. That they're a bunch of big bulldozing guys out there. He talks so much about how that offensive line is, the entire team for these guys. They're big, they're fast, and they're physical. And that's something Sonny Dykes really, really wanted to harp on as well.
Yeah, he talked a lot about that on Tuesday at the press conference. These guys are not going to go easy on TCU this week. They are fast, they are strong, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get past that red zone and score a touchdown.
Absolutely, and that's what Josh Newton told us too last week.
Oh,
We was a little early. We were asking him about that scouting report. He was like, oh, yeah, this one's going to be physical and it's going to be tough. They already knew the challenge ahead of them. And talking about a challenge, West Virginia's got a little bit of a challenge today at the quarterback position. Now, their quarterback, Green, who is a senior, has been hurt. He got injured in Game 3 against Pitt, win out, and they had a sophomore come in and play the entirety of their game against Tech. Now, they ended up winning against Tech. But going back to Green, the coach said that he's not so sure he'll be playing this week because West Virginia does have a bye week next week. So if he doesn't play this week, he'll have technically 3 weeks of recovery. And obviously, he's the guy that he wants to take this team to, hopefully, the Big 12 championship. So I don't think we'll be seeing Green on the field today. But if he does, he's definitely more of the passing accuracy guy. And Nico, on the other hand, is definitely more of a rusher.
Yes, so Green has a 55.32% completion rate. He's had 402 yards, 4 touchdowns, and the longest one being 70 yards with no interceptions.
That's
which
impressive.
is a huge thing to say because we have seen Chandler having some
Absolutely.
interceptions. So that's
I
something
mean,
to really
yeah.
highlight for their quarterback, and that says a lot about him.
Absolutely. Interceptions are bound to happen when you're playing that kind of physical, aggressive ball. And it's especially with them playing that fourth down mentality and knowing that they weren't throwing them on the red zone either on the goal line. Really impressive because that's something TCU has now corrected, but it wasn't where we started. And going into Nico Marchol, great player. You know, he stepped in for that Tech game. Coach said he's improving every week. He's getting better on the deep balls, which is something that he does need to work on. We didn't see a spectacular game from him last week. Laying out the stats for you, he has technically played in 4 games, getting a little bit of practice in everyone, which we know is so important with Chandler Morris coming in, knowing he doesn't really have in-game experience.
And that's not something you can teach, which
No.
we've talked about.
Yeah.
So it's really just getting that in-game experience. You can't play and practice
No.
without the crowd.
and
There's so many
all
other
the guys
factors
running out
going
you.
into every single game.
Absolutely.
So he hasn't had that experience, but he has a 56.82 completion rate, which is a little bit higher than Green, but not as high as Chandler with his 69% completion rate. But Nico also has 213 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions compared to Green with his 0 interceptions.
And so versus Tech last week, he went 12 for 21, 78 offensive yards passing, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. And then also for the rushing, 15 rushing attempts, 72 yards. And the team only had 99 total offensive yards. So Nico accounted for 72 of them. And the team had, they had 99 total rushing yards. Nico accounted for 72 of them. And the team had 256 total offensive yards. So, you know, the coach talked a ton about the entire team needed to play better. Yes, they got a win out of it, but it was not their best performance. I know Tech's quarterback went down as well. Might have been a little bit of an advantage for them, maybe a little bit of an asterisk there. But I know looking at that press conference, that coach was not happy with how he performed, wanted to see more accuracy, wanted to see guys get more involved in the rush. And talking about that TCU pressure, you know, those sacks.
TCU, beside that, TCU is 4th in the country in sacks. Hodge and Nnamdi Obies are really giving a bunch of one-on-ones.
Absolutely. They're going to win those
game.
every single time. Those are the guys you don't want running at you. You know, it grabs their attention. TCU plays a 3-down front with their own spin, kind of just mixing it up with coverages, and they see that more than those safeties with the 3-down look going into their receivers. Really talked about kind of what we've been saying about TCU, but the coach is saying they want to shorten the rotation. They're playing too many guys. Last week, 9 guys got touches on the ball. Now, that's not even as much as TCU.
No.
So, you know, there really are a ton of guys playing into rotation. Unfortunately, last week, Devin, one of their receivers, he didn't play as well, and the coach talked about that earlier that week. His grandma had passed away. So that was something a little bit out of character for him. Kind of talked a little bit about, since it is Mental Health Awareness Month, just remembering that these guys are also students, people, and athletes on top of that. So kind of just had to remind himself that maybe he shouldn't have been playing, only had 1 reception for 6 yards. But, you know, they're getting a lot of other guys involved.
Cole Taylor was their leading receiver last week. Just like you said, he had 3 receptions for 39 yards and 1 touchdown.
Absolutely.
Definitely
big win.
Not an Amani Bailey.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think they do have those players And
I just think that obviously Tech was not their best performance. And the coach talked a ton about that, going into those running backs. CJ Donaldson also didn't play very well, 15 for 48 yards, 1 touchdown. That's their running back. He talked a ton about just needing to finish the runs better. Now, this was one of his worst games of the season so far versus Penn State, which they did lose. It was the first game of the season. He went 18 for 81 yards and 1 touchdown. And against Pitt, he went 18 for 102 yards and 1 touchdown. He also talked a little bit about getting him more active on the pass. So while he wanted to get less receivers involved, he does see something in CJ Donaldson that could be really good for a wide receiver position. Maybe a little bit of a trick play as well. We see Amani Bailey get involved, yeah?
Absolutely. He is our guy, so he has those yards, and we've seen him show up every single game. So they might not necessarily have that guy right now, but they're definitely finishing their runs a lot better.
Absolutely. And they're hoping to find that guy tonight, especially on the road in a loud and a hard environment with the national championship runner-up. I mean, everybody wants this win this season, especially after TCU's last season. So going into that defense, their third down is at 25%, so only allowing the other team to convert for third down 25%. The coach talked a ton about needing to be better in the zone coverage, which is something definitely you're going to want to watch out for with those big tight ends like Jared Wiley and Chase Curtis. They're ready to get active and get involved. They want to create a ton more pressure. They're applying pressure 8% of the time, which is less than TCU, but pretty much around the same percentage. So I think both of these teams would like to be at a higher percentage. Like, for example, TCU was with Houston. We keep going back to that game, but by golly, 6 sacks. What a game for TCU's defense, 14% of the time applying pressure. They want to stop getting those long down and distances, getting better on the first down. They really just want to stop this stuff early. They don't want to let it go to a possible 4th down conversion. They want to make sure that it's 3 and out every single time. Penalties.
Yes, penalties. They definitely struggled a lot last year, but they are improving. I think it really is a problem with every team.
Absolutely.
I think every team has talked about penalties. Sonny Dykes has mentioned it a lot, which we've been improved in. And West Virginia
Absolutely.
is also improving in that area as well.
Yes.
Last season, the first 4 games had 30 penalties for 240 yards.
Well, that's worse than TCU.
I think that is a little bit worse than TCU.
It's very bad. This season, 16 penalties for 157 yards. So almost 100 less yards and about half the penalties. That's a huge improvement for this team. And something interesting, he talked about in fall camp and in the spring off season, they actually paid actual Big 12 refs to come and officiate during their practices. And he said, call everything. He wanted to make sure those guys knew this is a penalty, this is a penalty. So you think about that, going from that kind of practice to then on the field where not everything does get called all the time versus a practice where it's 100% of the time, no ifs, ands, or buts, it's getting called. So I think that definitely speaks for itself on something to improve with.
I think that's where West Virginia and TCU can compare. They really take that extra step to be the best that they possibly can. And that just shows it right there.
Absolutely. Definitely going the extra mile. And that's kind of that national championship mentality. That's why we saw TCU get there last season. So I think tonight is going to be a great game. And when we come back, we've got some offensive keys. Stay with us.
I love Coach Brow's offense. I think he uses the slots very well and just mixing us up in the backfield and doing all the motions and just going from one direction to the other, mixing us up on one side of the field to the other. And so just using our speed, and I think our speed in the backfield and on the field just helps out with the offense a lot. Just each week, we get better each week with chemistry and just gelling together, one-on-ones, just using my speed and him hitting me on the run is, what we do. And so we just kind of try to make that better, and we get better each week working together. I think he has great elusiveness, and he's just really quick with his feet. He has really quick feet, and so he can just hit the hole, and if it's one-on-one, he's going to make the guy miss every time. So I just like how he cuts and his vision. He has great vision as a back, and he's a fast dude. So all the time. And I always, the first game, Colorado, before I broke that one long run. I talked to him on what I should do, and he helped me out. And he said, just go. I was kind of being a little tiptoe through the holes, and so he told me just hit the hole. And Coach Cos as well, they were helping me back there and just telling me just go. And I'm thinking too much, and so I did that and let the chips fall where they may, and I got a long run off.
Absolutely, a ton of good things that Major Everhart gave us there in that offensive presser on Tuesday. We always hear some great things and really helps us lay out kind of what those offensive keys are going to be. We didn't show you Sonny's Tuesday. We wanted to show you his post game. Had a lot to say about that we thought was interesting. So let's go ahead and get in kind of the basics of what Sonny said.
So on Tuesday, Sonny talked a lot about that. Tuesday was their best practice that they've had in a while. So that says something really
Very
good
exciting.
Going into this game, because
Absolutely.
This definitely will not be an easy game against West Virginia. But it was good to get a win, as Sonny said last week, against SMU. And the guys definitely understood the challenge going into this week against West Virginia. All of those guys, including Sonny Dykes, talked about how big they are, how fast they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're willing to put anything on the line.
Yeah, there was no mincing their words there. They knew exactly what this team is capable of, and let's just say they know it's going to be a dogfight out there. Kind of what TCU wants to do is keep a bit of a fast tempo for offensive key number 1. TCU is ranked second nationally in offensive plays per minute, nearly 3 at 2.83. That is a ton if you think about it, and how long just the play clock is and how fast TCU is able to get out the ball and efficiently. He talked a ton about he talked about this in the presser, how a fast tempo wears down the defense and there's not much time for adjustments defensively. Because the offense knows exactly what play it's going to be, the defense now has to adjust. But when you're going that fast, there's not much time for adjustment. And if TCU's going that fast, they're also not subbing their guys out on offense. So while their offense is getting worn down, their defense is confused, trying to adjust, and on top of that, they're worn down, which is a really big advantage for TCU, and it's great that they can kind of play to that fast. Sonny Dykes described it as a wet field football. Makes the game ugly. It's dirty. You don't want to play in it. There's bound to be some mistakes somewhere. For the most part, TCU is able to make it out without offensive mistakes, but that is why we're seeing a lot of offensive penalties.
Absolutely. That second offensive key for TCU being their red zone performance. Obviously, we've talked about this before. This is something they really have to zone in on to be successful in the end. However, their red zone attempts in 4 games, 14 out of 19, which is a 73.7% completion for the red zone. So it's pretty good. It can improve.
Absolutely.
They're right at that average line, I would say.
Yeah.
If we're comparing it to NFL, that average is right about that 70% line.
Obviously, you want to be at 100, but let's be realistic.
So they're doing good. They do have room for improvement. 10 of those red zone attempts being touchdowns, but there have been 3 interceptions, 1 fumble in that red zone, and none versus SMU.
So we did see that improvement, especially, those first 3 were all from the first 3 games of the season. SMU play totally clean. No red zone interceptions, no red zone fumbles, and no interceptions or fumbles at all. Really, really big for TCU. And their opponents are 8 and 11 in the red zone. So the defense also doing their job right there as well. 5 of those 8 being touchdowns, so about the same as TCU comparatively. And going into their third key, capitalize on turnovers. Now, TCU is getting turnovers. They've got 6 interceptions and fumbles combined on the season so far. However, only 3 of those 6 have actually come up with points for TCU. So the defense is doing that job, getting the offense the ball back, and the TCU offense just cannot seem to convert. Only 2 of those 3 were field goal attempts, and then there was 1 touchdown. But to see TCU only amass that many points, about 13 points off of 6 turnovers, is kind of a cause for concern. So it's kind of imperative that the TCU offense really gets it together and plays more clean on those second chance scoring opportunities. Going into West Virginia, we talked about it a little bit, quarterback uncertainty.
There is a little bit quarterback uncertainty, which Sonny also talked about on Tuesday that they were preparing for. there is one left-handed quarterback and one right-handed quarterback. So in this case, a lot of the players talk about it's like writing with your left hand when you're dominant on your right. It's a whole different ball game. You have to completely
Everything is
adjust.
flipped.
It's completely flipped. So it's not like it comes naturally as a right-handed quarterback would be. So they're definitely preparing for that game on both sides. But TCU will definitely have to.
I think they're preparing for both, but I think it's pretty obvious who that starting quarterback is going to be, and it's going to be Nico. He's healthy, and I think it was pretty evident from the press conference that Neil Brown wanted Green to be able to sit out for technically another 2 weeks, only missing one more game, so that he could be totally healthy when they need him later in the season. But today is a big game for them, but I do know that he said if he wasn't able to play to his strengths in practice, he would not be playing today, and I know before last week's game, he wasn't able to warm up as strongly as he normally would be, so that was why they made that decision to sit him. They got to throw better and they got to run better, yeah?
Absolutely. Throwing 57% completion rate. So compared to Chandler, like we're going back again, 69 versus that 57. So they do have to really work on that tonight because we do have that very, very strong defense.
Absolutely.
And their quarterback also has only had 78 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception.
The 78 yards is definitely a cause for concern, especially because we saw what TCU did with SMU's passing offense. No offensive passing touchdowns. So I think to see them at such a low number and in the passing is a little bit concerning, and they should be concerned about that. They definitely want to nip that in the butt this week. And they're running.
They're running. They definitely have to run better as well. They have 15 carries for 78 yards with Nico as their quarterback. So going back to comparing to Chandler again, Chandler knows when to run the ball, when to throw the ball. I don't know if their quarterback right now really has that
maturity,
or that level of comfort even on the field. So I think he definitely has some room for improvement, but if they really want to be successful tonight, he's going to have to find that level of comfort.
Absolutely. Being able to get other guys like CJ Donaldson involved and maybe even on the reception too, like their coach Neil Brown is wanting, and what their coach said is about this offensive line. That's why it's key. Number 2, he said the strength of our entire football team is the offensive line. And that's a big thing to say about those big guys up front. You know, TCU talked a ton about how these guys are fast and physical, and they didn't just mean defensively. They meant offensively too. Against Penn State, they had 2 quarterback hurries, 3 sacks, about a 7.5% quarterback pressure rate. And Duquesne, 1 sack, 81 plays of offense, 1.2% quarterback pressure. So we saw a big improvement of them protecting their quarterback there. We go to Pitt, 2 sacks, 3.2% quarterback pressure, and then we go to Tech, 1 sack, leaving them at just 1.6% quarterback pressure. On the season total, their quarterback is under pressure only 3.6% of the time. Very similar to where we see Chandler Morris and that offensive line. So both of them a little bit evenly matched there. I know TCU's is a lot lower, closer to 1%. But it's really impressive to just see that offensive line really protect that quarterback, especially with quarterback uncertainty, that no matter who the quarterback is, they're going to do their job.
Absolutely.
And when we come back, we've got defensive keys. Stick with us.
I'm not really worried about how fast Major running because I know how fast I am, so it's good. I just tell him to follow me. On that Colorado, on the long one that Major had bust on Colorado, I was like, just follow me. I'm going to go, I remember the Titans when the quarterback was lead blocking on the last play. That's what I told him I was going to do. I mean, it was my first time really playing well. They kind of like the same, but at the same time it's not. I don't think I played as the best I could. There's a lot of things I can improve on. But it was fun being out there with the guys, them depending on me a little more and me just out there playing, making plays, Really just like the gap schemes, like hitting the gaps and stuff like that, because West Virginia do a lot of, like gap scheme stuff, like a whole bunch of pulling and stuff like that, so I got to make sure that, like, I'm in my gap and I'm hitting the right gap every time, so just a little bit more steadying. I mean, I'm honestly every day in practice we just come out there and empty the tank and a little bit more. So everybody running to the ball, even after the play is made, everybody getting to the ball, everybody wrapping up. Against Colorado, we had a hard time tackling, and like the scramble drill was killing us too. So we work on scramble drill a lot now, every single day. A whole bunch of in the GPS, everybody yardage is more now. So we just running around and practice more. I really think that the QBs they not too much different. I mean, Green he run the ball a little more, but QB run game it can get kind of tough. But I think we're gonna be ready and prepared for it.
Now we're obviously excited to see some points scored tonight, and we're very excited to see that Big 12 defense in action today. A lot unlike the Pac-12. We don't just let our teams run up the score, and TCU's got some defensive keys, especially today. Start us out number 1.
That first one being pressure in the pocket. So throwing some stats at you, Colorado had 7.4%, was applying pressure 7.4% of the time. Nicholls State applying pressure 9.3% of the time. Houston 14.5%, and SMU 9.5%. So overall, the season stat was 9.9% of the time. TCU is ranked 3rd in the nation for sacks and really applying that pressure overall.
Absolutely. There's a ton of pressure just being thrown at that quarterback from the TCU defense. I mean, boy, are they on it. TCU always has a great defense, and it's no different this season. The second key they want to do, be prepared for those pass breakups. Neil Brown, the West Virginia coach, has already said that his young quarterback, Nico, is not very good with deep ball accuracy, and he wants to see some improvement this week. This could mean we'll see him throwing better deep balls, or he could be throwing very sloppy deep balls. Either way, majority of his passes are probably going to be on the slant routes and the in routes. So I think TCU really needs to be ready for those pass breakups. TCU has 14 on the season so far, with Avery Helm accounting for 4 of those and Josh Newton accounting for 3. They've got to be ready to play close to that man so they can get an interception at the very best, or at the very least break up the pass and make sure that goes for an incompletion. Moving over to the West Virginia side, Sonny Dykes said he doesn't see very many weaknesses defensively. They play rough up front, very physical, and week 1, he claims, wasn't an accurate depiction of what this West Virginia team can do, which when they played Penn State. And I think that's very similar to what we've been saying about TCU. Colorado was an off game. For them, Penn State was an off game. Now they're really coming into full fruition of what they can do with their talent on the field. Going into number 1, they're going to want to limit returns. Major Everhart is that guy. Boy, can he run a kickoff return back. 86 yards, his longest. He's got 8 for 237, averaging 29.63. Now, West Virginia did not allow any returns against Tech, but I'm not too sure they're going to be able to stop Major Everhart tonight. Number 2.
Number 2 is to match that tempo and play clean. Like you said, both TCU and West Virginia, they play up front, and they're both very physical on both sides of the ball. So we really have to match that tempo. TCU plays fast at almost 3 plays per minute, which what we talked about earlier, they're 2nd in the nation in terms of that. Versus Tech, 4 out of 5 of those first drives were 3 and outs.
Really impressive for that defense to be able to force those 3 and outs, and that's something they're going to want to do again against TCU this week. And the third key is from their head coach again. He wants them to play a full 4th quarters. He said they were very fatigued at the end of the game versus Tech. He said the rain and cold was definitely a factor. We're here, though, in the heat. It's very sunny. Pretty windy, I'll be totally honest with you. But, he said the last 15 drives got very sloppy in the game, and that's not a way you want to end the game. And I think that's why we saw less and less of that offense just pushing down the field. We've got a couple of defensive clips for you with Sonny Dykes from State of the Frogs. When we come back, we've got our closing and our stars of the game.
Has them playing really good. As you said, they're 3-1. Lost a hard-fought game to Penn State early, and since then have been on a run. They won the backyard brawl against Pittsburgh and really dominated those guys, and really played well last week against Texas Tech as well. So it's a team that's got a lot of momentum. They're playing with a lot of confidence, It's a typical West Virginia team, very, very physical, tough-minded team. Really want to run the football. They've got a big, powerful running back and do a good job of pounding him. And that's kind of what they want to do. They want to play a physical brand of football. And so we're going to have to do a great job preparing for it this week and come out and not only match their physicality but surpass it.
I got to believe our defense and the way they're playing is a good matchup because I think Nico Marchiol is his name, is his second start ever in college. His dad played in the NFL, I think linebacker for a couple teams, but is a second-time starter in a college game. This is a defense's dream, I would want to believe, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think anytime you play against kind of a young quarterback, you want to make sure you do a good job of confusing him and pressuring him and not letting him get too comfortable and settled in. And so, I think it's probably the same kind of philosophy when people play us. Chandler doesn't have that many starts, and anytime you can take a young quarterback and confuse them and unsettle them a little bit, it's usually a good thing. And so, we'll be trying to do the same thing to them that they're going to try to do to us, and that's, again, make the quarterback uncomfortable. But again, they've got a really strong, powerful run game. The quarterback can hand it off, and they can churn out first downs to keep the ball away from you. And my guess is that's what they'll try to do on Saturday.
As always, our favorite part of the show is our stars of the game. And this week, I'll start us out. I'm going to go Chase Curtis, tight end. Last week, he had a touchdown, and he was his first career touchdown. He played awesome. And I think at the beginning of the season, if you'll go back to that, we talked a ton about how new offensive coordinator Kendall Briles loves to get those tight ends involved. So I think now, last week, was the first game where we fully saw everything he wants to do with that offense come into play. We saw the tight ends, we saw the rushing, and we saw Chandler Morris as a quarterback play a super clean game. So I'm expecting these tight ends to play a great game again and be the reliable guy for Chandler Morris.
My star of the game, switching it over to the defense. I think I've said him before, but I'm going to say him again. Nnamdi Obiezor, since he had his career high last game of 11 tackles and a team best, it's still up in the air whether Johnny Hodges will be playing tonight. Mm-hmm. But no matter what, Nnamdi stepped up last game, and I think we're going to continue to see that from him. And maybe he'll set a new career best.
Absolutely. As a young player right now, leading the team in tackles, I think that's incredible to see a guy like that be able to step up. And I think it says a lot about if you want to play, you'll play.
Exactly.
Sonny says a ton about practicing hard, and it reflects on the game. We've got 30 minutes until our 7 p.m. kickoff. TCU versus West Virginia coming up, blackout game here in the Carter. Both teams 3-1. For everything else Frogs Today, go ahead and head on over to frogstoday.com to check it all out. For everyone here at Frogs Today, I'm Maggie Hale.
I'm Courtney Stockhaus.
Go Frogs.